And we're back again. It is the Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly want to thank you for sticking around and checking out the show. Well, it's channel clicking season once again. We've got a lot of great things to talk about when it comes to the TV world, and a lot of spring premieres are now upon us or just about to come upon us. And who better to talk about it than our good friends at the TV Ratings Guide? You got to check out the TVRatingsGuide.com for all the great things going on in TV ratings land with reviews, stories, original scripts, and updates and news on the TV ratings world. And my good friend has returned. No, it's not Jessica. She's a little under the weather today, but we got an outstanding fill-in. He's returned to us after a long hiatus. It's our good friend Hunter Vaught. How are you today, my friend?
Oh, I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here indeed. I know Jessica wanted to be here as well. I know Jonathan Decote, he also wanted to be here as well. We'll get them, we'll just get them later on, count down the road, and they'll come back and talk to us about all those great things with Nashville. But we won't go there. We won't go there indeed. Had to get that sly little thing there, and I had to get that little shab in there because it's no longer available. But it is a great time indeed to be a TV fan because there are a lot of spring premieres. Some shows that debuted in December and January are now going off the air. I know The Alienist, which is a favorite of mine, and I recommend highly to binge. That just finished its season, a 10-episode run, pretty strong ratings, although it kind of dipped on the last end of it. But there are a lot of great spring premieres coming out, my friend. Obviously, we know about Roseanne and how well it did across all the demographics all around the country. First off, we'll lead in with that show. It did a tremendous amount of viewers, I believe above 18 million, if I'm not mistaken, as far as in its first episode. But the question, I guess, already is how far will it maintain its large audience, or if it does fall, how far do you think it will go?
That is a very good question. Um, with revivals that we've had recently, we've seen a pretty poor trajectory, like looking at Will and Grace, which premiered this last fall, or The X-Files, which had one season a couple years back. It was just 6 episodes, so it didn't have much room to fall. But then it came back again this last winter, and it was much weaker this time. With Roseanne, I think there is the potential for it to hold up better because its premiere was very well received, and it grew at 8:30. It was an hour-long premiere at 8, and the 8:30 half hour did better than the 8 o'clock half hour. And it's getting so much news coverage. Like, everyone is talking about Roseanne. So I think it has the potential to do very well in week 2 for a revival. Um, who knows what that will be, because looking at, for example, Will and Grace, it's the best example since also a comedy and returned so recently. It had a 3.0 in its first week and then a 2.0 in the second week, which is still a strong rating, but it's quite a big fall. That's a third of the audience.
And both of those shows, mind you, have been renewed for next season already. Is that correct?
Yes, and Roseanne, and not Roseanne, Will and Grace was renewed for an additional season recently, so it has 2 more seasons coming up that are confirmed. And then Roseanne was just 2 days after the ratings came out for its premiere, it was renewed for another season, which will be 13 episodes this time, which I think was the most they could get with that cast.
That's true because the cast, since the actual show originally appeared, a lot of them, like Laurie Metcalf, is now an Oscar. Was nominated for an Oscar. Also, as well, you've got John Goodman, who does so many movies out there. And obviously Sarah Gilbert as well. That she obviously has a lot to do during the daytime with her talk show. Those individuals definitely with the time and whatnot. So it's hard to get them all together for a full 22 a week season. So definitely 13 is not unreasonable by any stretch of the imagination. So
Yeah.
a lot of people be going back and forth on how much that show will drop in the ratings, but I think it, like you said, I think for at least for the short term, at least it's going to probably have some really strong numbers. And I think because of the support it has, and also because it, like you said, stays in the news and it's out front in there, and I think it'll, whether you like it or don't like it, it's going to have a contingent of individuals watching for at least some time to come. But there's also many other spring premieres on the way. I know there's some good news for a lot of people that like FX's Legion. I know that's something else that's coming out very soon. But there's some also other great shows. Atlanta, which is also very highly rated on FX. But there's so many more spring premieres that I know you want to touch on. So, which other shows are you keying in on as far as the spring premieres go, and which ones do you think will really hold out for the long term?
Well, for looking at just broadcast shows, ABC had Station 19 that is doing decent ratings. It held up really well after its premiere, actually grew from its premiere. So that one is looking like it's going to be a solid performer, nothing spectacular, just a Grey's Anatomy spinoff for those who don't know. It's going to be something, looks like it's going to be something solid. The new comedy Splitting Up Together, which premiered the same night as Roseanne, had a very good premiere rating. It'll probably fall from that because Roseanne will likely fall, but it's still looking like it's gonna do well and get a second season. Spring really hasn't been very kind to most of the networks, but winter was pretty good when you look at Fox, and that network decided to really avoid spring when it came to premieres and focused on winter premieres. They had a big hit in 911. The Resident is doing pretty well on Monday nights, even though early on it had to take a couple weeks off for the Olympics.
How well is LA to Vegas staying on the Fox area as far as it's concerned? How well is that one doing? Because that one premiered pretty much in line on the same area of time with the hit 911.
That is a very good question. Say that LA to Vegas is really a bubble show, one that could come back, but or could not come back. It's hard to say. I was recently leaning that it was not going to come back, but now I'm thinking it will. Because Vox comedy is going to be a very interesting category to watch as we head into upfronts this May, because so much of it is unknown. In fact, like for their live action comedies, the only two that I feel confident about are Brooklyn Nine-Nine, that's going to come back, and Ghosted, that's going to get canceled. They also have LA to Vegas, the new show we just mentioned, and two returning comedies, The Mick and The Last Man on Earth. Their fates are really unknown, and I'm leaning right now that LA to Vegas and The Mick, the two Tuesday comedies, are going to come back while The Last Man on Earth won't. But who knows?
But that show has been around a while, and once a show gets into its third or fourth season, if it's anywhere near the bubble, usually networks have a tendency to have it, usually if it's in its third or fourth season and it's not long enough to maybe get a full syndication deal because it doesn't go over that magical number of episodes, it usually networks decide to go ahead and pull the plug on those type of shows.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the situation with The Last Man on Earth. It had 13 episodes in its first season and then 18 episodes in the following seasons. And even if it gets to the magical around 88 numbers, that 80 episodes that they're trying to get to, would that be a show that they could sell into syndication? Because it's so heavily serialized that you can't really just watch an episode out of the order, like I said, from a few I've heard, or standalone episodes, and enjoy it. So it doesn't really have that syndication potential. Its target is probably more streaming or something. So it's possible that Fox will want a solid conclusion for the show and renew it for a short final season or something like that. Or it's possible that They'll be like, this isn't a show that's going to gain new viewers. It's not doing very well for us. We have a crowded schedule now, and we're gonna have to let it go.
That's some pointed advice indeed. Once again, it is Hunter Vaught from the TV Ratings Guide and TVRatingsGuide.com. You got to check out all his greatest work, all his great work there on TVRatingsGuide.com, including his articles, reviews, and check out everything else that's going on, including an occasional article, might happen with my name on it. It just, just every now and then just seems to float in there when there's something out there as far as when I do my film reviews. And I'm actually very, very appreciative that they even take the time to do that. So thank you so much to TVRG and everyone there. But you also got to check out, again, all their great original programming that they have there, plus also their great news updates, renew cancel indexes, and so much more. Hunter, I want to ask you again about going back to the spring premieres, because there got to be some things that I know spring usually has a downward trend as far as audience, people participation, maybe viewing, things of that nature. The numbers seem to go traditionally a little bit down, but there are some spring premieres that I know a lot of people are thinking about or looking forward to. Into the Badlands, uh, Fear the Walking Dead, I know are on the way in April. But are there some other shows that you're looking at with spring premieres that are of interest to you, or maybe interest to our viewers out, our listeners out there?
Well, if you're looking for a new show this spring that's like coming up, The Crossing premieres on Monday on ABC. That's like the final broadcast premiere of the season, I believe, of new shows. And so yeah, that's that one. The pilot episode has actually been released on Hulu and other places online already, so you can check that out, or you can check it out on Monday nights on ABC. It's the kind of show that they're trying to appeal to that it's like a sci-fi sort of audience, because the show is about these refugees that are showing up on this shore, and they discover this the huge twist here is that they're from the future. They come from this country, but from the future. So so it's a very sci-fi show with a really interesting concept that might appeal to people. They're ABC's advertising it as from the network that brought you Lost. So that's what they're trying to go after there.
Oh, don't get me started on Lost. Everybody will go to that ending, and there you go.
I
What
have some
about
strong feelings about that ending, but I'm gonna keep that note down.
that's for another day. That's for definitely another day, indeed. But one last thing, as far as it's concerned, NBC and CBS. We've talked about ABC, we've talked about Fox, but NBC and CBS. NBC actually, in my opinion, has had a decent year as far as with some of their shows. Superstore, I know, has actually in its third or fourth season now, has really started to gain a foothold in an audience. Plus, also as well some other shows with NBC, so they're no longer considered a laughing stock or anything of that nature, like there was a period of time that they were. There was also CBS as the I guess most successful broadcast network out there. Obviously has a lot of great successes, but there's also some things to look forward to as well. What are some of the things that are going on with NBC and CBS?
Well, NBC is doing pretty well when it comes to the returning shows. They have with comedy Superstore, which you mentioned, as well as The Good Place, which surprised a lot of people in its second season, as it actually did a little bit better than it did in its first season in the ratings, which usually it's a downward trend. So that one seems to be a show that's gained viewers through Netflix and other areas. Um, so that's on the comedy side. For dramas, they have the Chicago franchise as well as Law and Order SVU that are doing well, and can't forget the big hit This Is Us, which NBC decided to actually put over after the Super Bowl, and it did incredibly well, and it's just been doing really well this whole season. But for new shows, can't forget The Voice, taking up 3 hours of the schedule in the fall and spring.
Exactly. But I
Well,
want to ask you that real quick in regards to two things with NBC.
uh,
Is the Chicago and please no listeners from Chicago out there. I don't want any feedback on this. I'm just saying this as far as from a standpoint of is there too many Chicago shows on the TV as far as from a rating standpoint? Is there any kind of backlash as far as some of the Chicago shows are concerned? Because I know the Chicago shows have been a mainstay for NBC for a couple seasons now, but is there such a thing maybe are viewers actually still interested as far as seeing the maybe a extra number of Chicago shows that are on the network?
NBC seemed to be worried about a year ago that there were too many Chicago shows. They canceled Chicago Justice after one season last spring, despite it actually doing decently. It wasn't anything to like get excited about, but it wasn't doing poorly either. But they decided to cancel it. So maybe they were. So it seems like they were worried that with Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, and Chicago Med, adding Chicago Justice in there was just too much. And they were also having trouble at that time selling Chicago PD into syndication, although have done that now.
And then last question I have for you on NBC, and then we'll move over to CBS. This Is Us. Okay, Jack, we finally found out what happened with him, and if it's actually still Heroes, he would have been okay. But okay, we won't go there. But he's actually kicked the bucket on the show, and we find out how he died and everything. Since then, is are the ratings still there, or now that people know how Jack died, have they gone in unison as far as leaving the actual show and not watching it anymore?
Well, the ratings have held up in the few episodes since then. There hasn't been much of a test really, because it hasn't been very many episodes, but they've seemed to hold up well so far. And as someone who watches the show, I can see why. It's because the show had this big mystery of how did Jack die, but it wasn't focused on that. It like had so much other focus, and that wasn't even a question that was introduced until a few episodes in. Like there was no confirmation that by the present day where they were showing that Jack was dead. So that big mystery and that big question wasn't something that dominated the show. It was just something that kept viewers very interested. But ultimately, it's a show about family and a show about these characters. And the show seems to have done a good job of getting people interested in those characters, not just the mysteries and the stories. So that's why I believe that it's held up well in its few episodes since then and hasn't lost viewers' interest.
And for the record, I still use my crock pot, but we won't go there. Once again, it is Hunter Vaught. He is, if you want to reach out to him on Twitter and ask him a question about the TV rating scene, about what shows he feels may be on the cut line, maybe doing well, maybe saved, maybe renewed, whatnot. Oh, I didn't even actually talk to you about Timeless when it's returned to NBC. As far as that, wondering, what is going on with Timeless now that's on what I've always called back when Elementary got put there, the Sunday 10 p.m. death slot. But I've heard there's actually hope for the show after all.
Yeah, I was really pessimistic about its chances going into season 2 because the renewal for season 1, if I don't know if all of you were following it or not, but it was originally canceled. But then a day or two later, the decision was reversed, likely because Sony, who produces Timeless, offered NBC a good enough deal for the show that they decided to give it a second chance. And I've thought that okay, it's getting a second chance, but it's not going to do what they expected they hope it will do. But in its premiere, it actually did pretty well, and it's kind of declined since then. So it's become more of a bubble show. But but it's doing better than I thought it would, and it does have a good chance of coming back for season 3, I believe.
I just think it still has to get out of that Sunday 10 p.m. Time slot. I just don't think it's a 10 p.m. show. I think that's the first problem. It's always been put on 10 p.m. and I just don't think it's a 10 p.m. type of show. It seems like I've actually been watching the show myself, and I think it's a show where you could put it on an 8 p.m. and or a 9 p.m. slot because of its content and the way it handles its various time frames. And I think it would be fine. But I think it's never been best served by being in that 10 p.m. time slot, which we are now associating with when you also talk about the broadcast cable stations about shows that go a little bit more risky with a lot of certain things.
Yeah, I mean, just comparing Timeless, the show that aired in that same time slot on the same network a year ago, Shades of Blue is a much darker show. It was much dark content, like the type of things that the show covers. It definitely belongs at 10 p.m. While Timeless, it doesn't really need to be at 10 p.m. In fact, it would probably, I would say that it's the type of show that, since its ratings aren't great, don't want to put in a priority time slot, but it could work on Fridays at 8 or 9, or during the summer at 9 o'clock. So that's what I think they should do
I
with it.
agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I just don't think if it ultimately does get canceled for permanently, and it's ever going to happen. I think that's one of the things that's said about it is just it was just never meant to be for that time slot that it's in currently. But like you said, it's all about how they negotiate the deal and how NBC always perceives it to be as something that they just want to use as filler out in the schedule or something that actually they wanted to go ahead and promote. And you can tell which shows that they love and which shows that they are just using as filler on their schedule. But that's for another story as well. One last thing before we head on out, we got to talk about CBS. They're still on top, doing so much and doing so many great things as far as the TV ratings are concerned. Obviously, they've renewed so many of their shows. Is there one show that you think, even with the fact that it's on CBS, it's still a surprise that it's on the air? Or is there some shows maybe that you think that might get canceled that you think deserve a better chance on CBS?
Well, that's a big question. It's like lots of different parts
Well,
there.
I'm just saying, are there any shows out there? Because we all know about Young Sheldon, we all know about all the shows that are on CBS that do so very well each and every week because CBS is such a given all the things that are considered with all the different options people have for broadcast networks, CBS is still the number one network that's out there. So given that that's the case, but there are shows that even through all these big shows that are coming up day after day after day, there are some shows that I know that probably the TVRG kind of likes to focus on that maybe not are just the big hits that are for the network.
Yeah, well, actually, NBC stole CBS's title this season with the help of the Super Bowl and the Olympics, though CBS might get it back in the future because NBC won't have those things next season.
And
But
that's what
there's,
I base it off of because you can't.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's kind of skewed territory there at NBC having those things. But then again, at the end of the day, how much does NBC actually pay for the Olympics and pay for the Super Bowl? And do they actually get their money back on it? I think they do on the Super Bowl, but the Olympics have always been like a very tough deal.
yeah, and those are very expensive.
Yes. So CBS may actually be the winner in that case. And like you said, given all things considered on the even table, CBS still comes out on top as an overall network on their regular programming if you based off it.
Yeah, when we're looking at the all of the viewers of all ages, CBS does really well because they appeal to older viewers more so. Like when you're looking at the 18 to 49 ratings, which we look at the most, the networks look pretty close. But when you look at total viewers, CBS tends to be far in the lead. Just especially there's Tuesday night lineup with NCIS Bull and NCIS New Orleans. It's a very big lineup in total viewers, especially NCIS. It's a huge hit.
And is there any shows on the network that stick out to you as one maybe people should watch that they're not watching quite as much? I know that's hard to say when it comes to CBS, but I know there's some actual outside the shows that consistently year after year after year get renewed. there may be some shows that maybe on the I guess maybe on the fringe line that may be of interest to you guys at the TVRG.
Yeah, the comedy Superior Donuts, which airs on Monday nights. It's a bubble show right now, and I'd like to encourage everyone to watch it because it's a good show. It's one of my favorite comedies on the network. My favorite two on the network are that and Mom on Thursday nights. But Superior Donuts is a funny show, and they get into their groove really in this second season that they're in right now. And it's a funny show. The show is about like it's set in a donut shop in Chicago, and it's about this old Jewish guy who like hires this young black guy to work with him at a donut shop, and because he's resistant to change and doesn't want to hire anyone, but he reluctantly hires this guy, and it handles a lot of issues, and it does it really well, I think, and it's funny usually when it does those.
That's correct. Judd Hirsch is back on television again, leading this show. I'm not sure he's having the same kind of success as he did with Taxi, but still, it's just great to have him on the air. And like you said, that is a very entertaining show. So I hope people get a chance to see it and help support it because, like you said, it's right on the cut line for that you're estimating right now at TVRG. So definitely some things to look forward to. Is there anything spring premieres that's coming up for CBS that you wanted to point out as well?
Well, CBS doesn't have many spring premieres. At least, well, they had two new shows. New comedy, Living Biblically. It's hard to say again. Premiered at the end of February, so it's still like it wasn't really spring when it premiered, but it's mostly airing in the spring. And that one it's not doing so well. But they also have Instinct, new drama, which airs on Sunday nights.
That's right. I saw that.
Yeah.
As far as that one, how's that one doing? Because I know that's what in the 9 o'clock in the 9 o'clock slot. Is that correct?
It's at 8 o'clock.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, it's
okay.
in between 60 Minutes and NCIS Los Angeles.
That's why. Because I knew it was sandwiched in between something. Okay, all right. How's that one performing?
Well, it's hard to say at this point because it got such big lead-ins in its first couple weeks, especially its second week with CBS airing big March Madness basketball games before its primetime lineup. So that gave the lineup a big boost. So that makes it hard to gauge how well Instinct's actually doing. This week, in its third week, it's going to be it's going to get a really tough situation because it's airing on Easter and doesn't get that big lead in. And then the week after, it gets a big lead in again. So the first week we'll really be able to judge it, I believe, is when it airs on April 15th, which is its fifth week, because then there's no holiday that'll drag it down or no big lead in that's going to boost it. We're going to see its true strength.
That's great indeed. That's great news indeed. So we'll definitely have a gauge on Instinct to see if that's one of the two shows that will survive the cut line from CBS as far as its spring premieres are concerned. Any other shows that you want people to know about that are coming out this spring, or any other shows, period, that you want to talk about as far as that's on streaming, cable, network, whatever you want to talk about? The floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, that's a lot.
Well, any shows, what are the shows that you think people need to know about?
Well, a lot of my favorites just ended recently, but there's one I can mention. Netflix has a comedy, One Day at a Time. It's a remake of the old show, One Day at a Time. This time with Latina cast, and it's very good. It just got renewed for its third season after there was a big push to get it renewed because there was no news had come out about it yet, and with Netflix we can't really gauge how well the show's doing usually unless it's obvious, like with shows like Stranger Things. Obviously that's a hit for them, but couldn't really tell with One Day at a Time. But people advocated for its renewal, and it just got it recently. I think it was this week, might have been the week before, but that's great news for all of us fans, and I definitely recommend the show. It's a great family comedy that tackles a lot of issues and does it very well, I believe.
Well, that's awesome. That's definitely, I know, I think, like you said, it did get the go ahead for another season, I believe, a week ago, and definitely looking forward to that for all you Netflix viewers out there. Well, once again, it's just so great to have you on. It is Hunter Vaught. He is, like I said, you can contact him on Twitter at Hunter VOGT. That's at Hunter VOGT. If you have any questions for him on the TV rating scene, or also as well through TV Ratings Guide and TVRatingsGuide.com, they are the place to go as far as reviews, renew cancel index, articles, features, original programming that they have exclusive to TVRG that, well, actually it's not so exclusive because they actually send it out to us, and we're so blessed to actually also present it as well at the Pop Culture Cosmos with their original shows that they're doing. So definitely check that out as well on their platform. It is TVRatingsGuide.com. And I'll tell you what, are you working on anything right now for TVRG at this point in time?
Well, I'm working on mostly reviews right now for the site, and as well as the ABC Renew Cancel column, which I post usually on Fridays. So just had one that I posted about where I think my first predictions for the new comedy Splitting Up Together and Alex Inc. And then I'll be doing one coming up on Friday for the new drama The Crossing.
Definitely, that's something to look forward to indeed. Once again, it is Hunter Vaught. You can reach him at the TV Ratings Guide and TVRatingsGuide.com to check out all of his great work today, and everyone else's for that matter, because TVRG is the place to go for everything TV ratings. Hunter, it's been so great having you on, and again, you are welcome back. Jess, when she's feeling better, is welcome back. I know, like you said, you had the upfronts in May coming up, so definitely looking forward to hearing from both you, Jess, Jonathan, and anyone else at the TVRG as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a hectic time. Looking forward to it.
I am as well, and unfortunately, there will be no Nashville around to talk about. But again, it's great having you on, Hunter, and great having you a part of the Pop Culture Cosmos.